Alright, so to those familiar with Hirano Kouta, let me make this full screen. To those familiar with Studio Madhouse and Hirano Kouta, you're going to know about Hellsing Ultimate, Hellsing Period, and all their work with stuff like Death Parade, and you'll know that, how can I say, they got the style that comes out very specifically in Drifters, where they will mix, their pacing is immaculate, because you start off in any of their series, and you can see their ability to animate action, but then mix in sordid, sardonic, just fucked up elements with a sense of frenetic humor and an acceptance of, how can I say, the humor they use always highlights how fucked up their world is, because they always make these fucked up worlds but full of badasses who accept that it's fucked up. Like Mr. Fuck, what's his name again? Alright, shown in main character action samurai dude here from history, who I should probably know from history of Japan. And so here we have your introduction. And I love everybody who goes in the series not knowing the premise that well, because here we have, for those who don't know, Drifters is a series slash manga slash anime about a bunch of historical characters being taken out from the moment they died in history, or the moment they disappeared in history, and being put in a fantasy world as kind of hyper-realizations. That's the funny thing about this series. So anybody who knows the history of these characters kind of knows that these characters like Shimazu and Butch Cassidy and Hannibal, they're not really playing historically accurate versions of themselves. More like, it's more thematic, and that, so you get to do fucking sick shit with them. It's not meant to be realistic. It's played up for it's almost like the way Epic Rap Battles does their historical characters. It's played up for the theming of what their characters were about. So Shimazu will be a hyper warrior, and Oda Nobunaga is going to be stark, strategic badass. Oh, and there's that jazz, that Hellsing Madhouse jazz. God, you gotta love Studio Madhouse. Okay, there's a moment coming up here in a couple minutes where, I mean, I get it, you know, anime. We accept a bit of a suspension of disbelief sometimes, but this motherfucker's about to get stabbed about 14 times and continue to walk and survive 2 hours, and the biggest explanation for how he's still alive afterwards is gonna be, hey, I bandaged you up with some thin shit gauze from the 10th century. You know, just eat a sandwich, get up. Now, I don't know too much about Japanese history. I know an overview of the Edo period and Shungoku era, the Warring Ages, and the feudal system, stuff like that. But names I'm not good with at the moment. I would have to study longer to know. So I would be very interested to study the actual history behind the real life figure here, because once again, they're not really played up to be accurate. It's more thematic of who their characters were. So he's supposed to represent the not macho, more like the hyper prideful and ever striding forward warrior. He is the wanderer. He doesn't care. He just accepted his stake in life. And I kind of like that. Madhouse does, when they do character dev, they will take a character and bring them right to their prime, but make it interesting and make it more. Character development is not focused on so much as just you find out who the character is rather than they change. And I actually like that approach a lot. You know, it's different from the farm boy approach of, okay, we're gonna take a little farm boy and we're gonna teach him about the world. No, these people know about the world. They know how fucked up it is. So, but rather, what Madhouse characters will always do is just take their life experiences, and the story itself delves into who they are, rather than the story changes who they are. And I've always liked to see that. Also, can I just say, since we're already seeing Shimazu's introduction here, I like that the introduction of every single character of the show is essentially, fuck you, motherfucker! Sorry, I gotta be quiet. There's people doing stuff next door. Anyway, but yeah, it's so interesting that we start out with very much without any indication of what's going to happen halfway through this episode, unless you've read the description of this show. Because if you don't really know anything about the plot of this show, then I love the idea that you have no idea what's going on with the samurai or why we're focusing on a historical setting so much, or that maybe you think this is going to be like following some historical set of tales following this warrior, but then in a couple minutes you're about to see have that flipped on its head. Also, another thing that Madhouse does really well is darkness. They do their series are dark action comedy yet dramas. Hot. Let me see if I can come up with a term for that. They're like dark action dramedies, wherein they will show you the fucked up sides of everything, but they'll also make sure you don't linger there for too long to the point where it becomes ultra depressing. They balance it, so they put in fucked up shit in their show. I mean, you'll see later in the show. I mean, spoiler alert, around episode 5, you'll see. I mean, rape and pillaging, people getting dead. Okay, here's what I'm talking about. This guy gets stabbed 20 times. He is not one of the superhumans of the show. He gets stabbed 14 times here, and he's going to survive for the next 5 hours. And he's just going to get bandaged up a little bit by somebody with 10th century knowledge or 11th century knowledge of medicine in Japan. And he's going to be completely gnarly fine and get up and kick ass about 5 minutes later. Now, there are fantasy elements in this show, but he is not supposed to be superhuman. He is not affected in any way. He is a dude. He is a regular dude. He lost like 3 gallons of blood there. Jesus. Also, you know, I'm alright with like historical appropriation or like revisionism since it's more of a fantasy setting, and they're kind of taking the archetypes of the historical characters and rather than going for accuracy. But the only thing that begins to bother me with Shimazu's character here is that A, he has wavy, spiky anime boy hair, and B, he has the red sort of. Oh, okay. I'm gonna cut this ad out. I'm gonna. All right. Well, ad. You know what? Never mind. I won't. I'm lazy. I'm not gonna cut this shit out. It's only like 30 seconds. But I'll take a second to talk about. So he's got those gloves that like Cammy has in Street Fighter and a couple other characters like Sun Wukong and Ruby. Like those like red combat gloves. I don't know. I want to know the first anime those things shows up, or like where that image originates from. Hey, JoJo, hey. Alright. Free advertising for these guys, whatever. Maybe I should do JoJo later on. That'd be a adventure. I've only ever seen the first arc of JoJo with what's his name? The very first JoJo they talk about in Phantom Pain, the British gentleman one. Oh, hey, an advertisement for the show we're watching. Oh man, can I say love? I can't wait to look at the opening later, because I love that when a studio is so complex, or their animation and art styles are already so professional that they can actually revert back and put in more basic animation inside their show, and then revert it back to their and juxtapose it with their extremely clear advanced animation. That's what they do in that intro. They'll have the little stick figure drawings of the elves, but then they'll immediately cut to like the poster shot of Shimazu here. But yeah, in a strange way, though they don't focus. How can I say? Though the drama is cut in a very interesting pace cut between the comedy and action of the series, somehow Madhouse uses pacing in the way they do, wherein they avoid, like I say, overburdening their viewer with the drama of their characters, in a way that actually kind of makes it more impactful. Because these guys don't cry. They don't get butthurt about the events going around them. They've already accepted the fucked up nature of the world. But you can still see in brief moments like that, the fact that they're so proud and so frenetic and never show their pain the way they do, when you see small hints of it, it's actually kind of more impactful. Because you get the sense of, inside this exterior, this tough exterior they all have, they're all still human. They're just trying to hold back their grief to make it in this world. And at the same, and that's part of what makes them so strong. Their ability to move past their pains, and that's actually makes them in a way more badass. Just to see those little moments of humanity that they have to hold back on a daily basis, just to exist the way they do. So I'm only about I'm about 8 episodes into the first season. I haven't gone into the manga yet. So some people have complained that there's not too much given away, and that we don't know why we're rooting for these characters, and like we don't know enough about this other world. But I actually kind of like it that way. I like the mystery they're putting up here in this. Now, viewers of Hellsing Ultimate might know that might be a little nervous, because they might get nervous that the explanation later on in the series of why everything's going on might be lackluster. But right now it works, in my opinion. Mystery of why these two ethereal beings are manipulating the events of the world. And I like that we're focusing just right now on the characters and how they're interacting in this strange situation. Because that's what any sort of that's the arc of any good story. You take a character in a certain equilibrium and you push them into a extreme situation, and you see what happens and the implications of how they react. That's the structure of a lot of good action plots. You can subvert that if you want, but you know. Sorry, I just like the idea of what his imagination of hell must be. Just being stuck with a couple of blonde farm boys for all of eternity. Sorry, I like that the first time I ever heard the term drifters used to name this series, I was immediately thinking like it must be like an initial D series. And I was thinking of Eurobeat intensifies, you know. Deja vu, haven't ended the face before. See, that's what I'm talking about. They'll be in the middle of drama, and they can still interject comedy, and they make it work. Like, it actually, because this is not a normal, balanced world. This is a very dissonant, hyper-violent, very, dramatic and fucked up world, just to be, completely clear about it. But, so the fact that they juxtapose the drama and the terror and the pain with the comedy and action and the strength of these characters, it makes for this very balanced unbalance. That makes sense. It's dying. He doesn't need a name. He's not a person. He thinks he's people. Okay, so so many people think that this is your role the first time they see this character, and in Madhouse very specifically, probably must have been, and all the writers and animators and drawers on board, they must have kind of written so many elements to give off that appearance. I mean, they really must have been going for that. Not shock value, just surprise. And I mean, and they even give him a female voice actor, I believe. I mean, look at that shot. That's the money sexy shot. And then he's a dude, and a 19-year-old. But they use that for a good comedy bit in a second here, so it still works. Okay, so I'm interested. I want to say that the producers and writers of the show have a little bit of bias here, because about 3/4 of the good guy historical characters so far are all Japanese. Just that's interesting. I mean, you got a couple Americans in Butch Cassidy with the good guys. You'll see that later on, and Hannibal the Conqueror and Scipio of Rome. But so far it's basically very largely good, sort of fucked up good guy Japan versus more fucked up evil guy Europe. That's the general demographic of the show so far. Because Because you got, I mean, Jesus Christ, or at least a person they heavily implied to be Jesus Christ, leading, like, what's his name, Rasputin, and Anastasia. Okay, that's the one I don't get. I'm trying to figure out how they made Anastasia the a villain in this. A Joan of Arc, although I guess, although it does fit with the concept, sort of, that the villains are only villains because they're historical characters who were betrayed by history. That's the idea, that they've gone evil because of how they were treated in history. And again, it's not meant to be accurate. It's meant to really just fit a thematic idea of these characters. These characters are really hyper amalgamations of their real life selves. Oh man, Cowboy Bebop. Let's watch that too. Okay, that's another thing. Madhouse, along with I forgot the studio that made Cowboy Bebop. It might have been the same actually. I think maybe. Wait, Sunrise. Sunrise. Right. Okay, so Madhouse good has a good OST working for it, and they have, how can I say, good sound design working for them. But that Sunrise, Jesus. See, this is what I'm saying. They interject the pride and comedy of these characters. It's dramedy with these characters because you see that you can still sense their human. You can still very well sense their human, and actually, the action and their pride and all the imperfections of the world around them actually really serve to make you very invested in all of them. And it actually helps that they have a thematic element of history for each of these characters going for them. It really aids with their characterization. Although I'm interested that Oda Nobunaga is portrayed as having a gun. I don't know too much. My Japanese history is rusty. I'm really rusty with my Japanese history, so I would have to know. But so far, he's the person very focused on his main weapon is the gun. And actually, that's the interesting thing. They're portraying him as the best and the most apt and pragmatic strategist of all of the main three here, and to the point where they're having him predict the method of warfare. That's the thing I love about the series. You wouldn't expect a deep philosophical analysis from just an action series like this, but if you look for it, it's there, because they have some art of war elements going on in this story, wherein Oda Nobunaga is meeting these characters from later in history with newer technology like automatic Gatling guns or revolver pistols or airplanes and stuff like that. And he's summarizing in his own words what he believes to be the future combat and the effects of this new technology later on in combat. And it's fascinating that his commentary is supposed to actually reflect the reality of history and like later history. So anybody who knows history is going to be very interested in his commentary on war. I actually want some roast duck right now. So yeah, so there is an element of historical analysis here because you're actually learning some of the history of warfare through these characters. Like you're gonna there's a part that weirds me out a little, and I have to figure out whether this was an actual whether this was really so much a big part of his strategy in certain battles, wherein he utilizes human shit so much for so many different purposes. I'm just fascinated. Like he uses it to help produce gunpowder. He uses it to poison enemies. He uses it to destroy water supplies and make them unusable by the enemy in torch campaigns. I'm so fascinated. I have to know if Oda Nobunaga really had used that so much, or if any historical figure for that record was so fixated upon using shit as a weapon. I just love the idea that shit could be the best possible weapon in a historical setting. Okay, here's the big reveal where he's like, "Yo, I'm from 400 years ago, bitch." Although, I wonder if there would be any signs. What? I mean, we would recognize somebody. Now, mankind has progressed far more and far faster in the last couple hundred years than the last couple thousand, and so it's much more jarring for us, 300-year difference. But I had to wonder if you had time travel between their era, 1500, the 1500s, and like 1100, where he's where the other Arrow guys from, Yoichi. I have to wonder if they would be able to identify it as well. Would society, would the pace of societal change from their eras be notable? Okay, that's another thing with how they're like kind of wide bonering us and kind of comedically confusing the audience because they draw Yoichi here with like a breast like they draw him with some cleavage to further confuse us, which I'm completely fine with. You know, gender norms are different now. You know, it's okay. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. They put a Band-Aid on him, and he's completely fine after being stabbed 14 to 20 times. And he's not supposed to be one of the superpowered characters because they superpowered. This is another question I have. Why are only the villains getting superpowers? Murasaki could not give Oda Nobunaga, I don't know, like a little like teleportation or maybe some of the fire stuff, like anything thematic. Like Shimazu couldn't get some like water bending, or like Butch Cassidy couldn't get like the Mortal Kombat X like gunplay of what's his name, the cowboy, the Mortal Kombat X, or like Gunner Yuna uh, pistol magic. I don't know. Just get why don't they get any cool magic stuff? Okay, but again, so some people have complaints about not knowing as much as they might want to about the greater plot here with the two ethereal figures of Murasaki and the other girl manipulating the events of this world. But I like the mystery. I like to wonder. And once again, and another fun element of the show is that if you actually know just a bit of the history, there's so much comedy and insider jokes. It's almost at like comic book movies in a way. It's like in comic book movies, if you read the comics or like if you go into Old Man Logan and you see some issue 41 in the movie, you're gonna be like, ah, there he is, or there's Stan Lee. But here they're doing that with history. And that's pretty cool. And they're just saying, no, you dumbass, that later in history this happens, and the things that you fought for are fucking stupid now. But again, so you will have a comedic moment like that, and Madhouse, the way they pace shows, they can just immediately jump into deep drama with their characters, and it doesn't feel jarring at all. It actually aids the plot that you're set up to feel lighthearted at times, and then you can suddenly jump into depth and realize how deep some of these characters are. And the sound design so helps that, like that they can very suddenly put it on that piano or guitar track, you know, that stuff you'd hear at a bar at like 11 o'clock. And he can very suddenly go into a inner monologue about the depravities of his life and uncertainty of the world. And actually, they are exposing a motif of this series, wherein from later members of history. Oh, okay. So for those of you who don't get that joke, Mori Ramuro was a part of the Nanshogo tradition with Oda Nobunaga, wherein there would be very openly known gay relationships between samurai, which a lot of like people are going to be like, wait, what? Samurai were gay? Well, no way. What? But there's, but that's what? And like homophobes are gonna be like, no, samurais are supposed to be the manly men. They're supposed to be the warriors. Well, yeah, you can be a warrior and have sex with a dude. I don't know why that's such a foreign concept. Well, I understand why it's a foreign concept to somebody who wouldn't be comfortable with homosexuality, but I mean, the sooner we can get people accustomed to the idea, the better. Okay, so here you see the big bads. You know, your villain force, your Akatsuki, and the villainous army. And I just once again have to like pose the question: why do only the bad guys get the cool fantasy powers? Like I don't. Maybe some of our heroes, quote unquote, are gonna get them later, but I don't know, not yet. So here we, okay, so we're at our ending here. So thoughts on the series so far? I'm at like episode 8 or 9, and I'm very well in love with this series. I can very well see myself going and reading the manga now afterwards. It is exactly my area of action, history, and fantasy. I just love the mix of that, and it's not used gregariously. The historical component actually helps the plot a lot, and it helps that they decided to go laissez-faire with the historical component and just use it thematically rather than try to put up a super accurate analysis of like, oh, how these characters would act in once put together. Because this shows like these are supposed to be thematic. That's the whole idea. That's what you should aim for in doing something like this. Unless you want to do an accurate character study, which no, this is not meant to be. But and I am very curious to see get answers to the mystery and see how much farther and they go into analysis of history and like how much they begin to learn about like the paradigm shifts of changes in time periods on action and warfare and stuff like that, and the differing themes of warfare throughout history. I am very excited to see that. But we're right about at the ending here, so like, thank you for watching and thank you for joining me here today for another fan commentary. All right. And next time, maybe we'll start doing second episodes of these things if I feel like it. I'm gonna be honest, I might be too late to do it. All right. Thank you. Goodbye and good night or good morning, depending on where you are in the world.